Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dive In podcast. Today we're doing an episode with amazing female entrepreneur called Felena Hanson, and Felena is going to tell us more about her entrepreneurial journey and what she's doing now. Felena, hi, and welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for agreeing in your, hectic schedule.
We all are. Just the way life goes now these days. So.
Okay, Felena, I'm going to take you back to your past.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk now about all the journey you went through, first of all, college, and then later on with the businesses you established and how it went. So if you can just tell us, let's start from the college.
Yeah. I'm actually going to back up a little further because there's a few points in the story that relate to today that are important. So I grew up here in California. I grew up to two entrepreneurial parents, so I call my family rebellious. Very interesting, unconventional childhood. There's a lot of twists and turns, but I'll keep it simple. We had a lot of animals growing up, including peacocks, and that was my first entrepreneurial venture, was selling peacock feathers in my little hometown in front of the local grocery store. And little did I know, years and years later, when I founded Hera Hub, my current business, Hera is the Greek goddess of women, and her symbol is the male peacock feather, because she was said to guard and protect women through every stage of their life, so being very watchful over them. And she was known to have big, beautiful eyes like that of a male peacock feather.
Amazing.
So when I, years and years later, started Hera Hub, a co-working space and business accelerator for women, I realized Hera's symbol was the male peacock feather. It just tied perfectly into my first entrepreneurial venture. My parents, again, worked for themselves pretty much their entire career, and neither of them graduated from college. They went to college, but neither graduated. And so going to college for me was not emphasized in my family. That being said, I did go to college, and that's what brought me here to San Diego ultimately. Did a degree in business and set off into the world for my first job in sales. So in my 20s, basically from the time I graduated at 21 to 30, I worked for smaller businesses, initially in sales and then in marketing. I worked for a marketing agency in Los Angeles, several other companies, so was definitely in that world of marketing for quite a few years. Went back to school, got my MBA. At night while I was working at the marketing agency.
How was that? Juggling between job and doing your academics and...
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, I enjoyed it very much. Yeah. I just, again, education wasn't emphasized in my family. I have 8 brothers and sisters, and none of them went to college. None of them. It just
Are they entrepreneurs also?
All over the map. They're all over the map, to be honest. But my little brother is taking over my father's business, so that's great. But all that being said, I loved education. I loved learning. I still love learning. I love teaching now, and so I enjoyed my MBA. During that period of time that I was going to school, that company imploded, ran out of money. So I got laid off. I finished my MBA full-time the last semester and then moved back to San Diego and got a job as director of marketing for a company, which was great, a technology
firm. How old were you?
So at this point, I'm now 28 years old. Get this job, it's my dream job, director of marketing, technology firm. I'm there a couple years, and they sell the company to America Online. This is an old school company here in the United States that did internet, basically. They were the first internet provider in the US. And I got laid off. That was my 3rd layoff by the age of 30. So first company I worked for, I got laid off from. They sold. Second company ran out of money. Third company sold. And so it was this period of time in my life. My marriage was also falling apart at that same time. I got married kind of young, and that was very circumstantial. I'm certainly happy to go into that if you like. But so I lose my job, my marriage is falling apart. I felt like my whole world was collapsing all at the same time. And I just reflected back on how I was, brought up, which was scrappy, rebellious. And I started my own business at that point at 30.
Did you do a lot of personal work during that time, like reflecting on who you are, what happened, your next steps? Like a personal development also.
Yeah, I mean, always, right? I'm always looking at, who I am and what my impact should be in the world and what do I want it to be in the world. Something that was really a big part of my journey is 1 year after I graduated from college here in San Diego and then was at that point living in Los Angeles, I came back for the weekend to see some girlfriends here in San Diego. A girlfriend of mine's birthday. I was excited to go back and see some girlfriends here, and was here not too far from where we are right now, driving at the end of a freeway that ends in one of our local beach towns, and a fire truck came and ran a red light and hit me, and I broke 27 bones in my arms, legs, and face. I was in the hospital for quite some time, had surgery after surgery after surgery. It took me a long time to recover. So I have titanium plates and rods, like literally all over my body. And that event at age 22 was certainly a defining moment for me in that, I shouldn't be alive right now. Truly, I should not be alive. If you saw my car and, I'm in a little Jetta and I hit a fire truck hits me, not a fair fight, right? So that experience certainly allowed me to step back and truly say, okay, I'm alive. Obviously, I'm here to do something more.
Yeah.
It's certainly a point of reflection to step back and say, okay, what am I here really to do? And that the gentleman that was with me, not in the car, but with me at that period of time, we ended up getting married, and it, was great and exciting, but I got married a bit too young, and just there was so much circumstance around my life and what had happened from that car accident that led me to say yes when he asked me to marry him, and no regrets. Great guy. We were just not right for each other. So that's, fast forward to age 30, and that fell apart. And then I got laid off again for the third time. So.
And for how long did it last like that? I mean, the situation with the job and then the marriage, and how were you feeling? And
yeah, I mean, we're basically talking 21 to 30, so almost 10 years. And, it's when you set off into your career, you do the things you think you're supposed to do, right? You go get a job and you hopefully buy a house and you,
married and have kids.
Yeah,
and
do all the things, right? And, just to be candid, I mean, we did get pregnant. I wasn't able to have the child. And so that was, there were these little like glitches along the way where you think you're checking off all the boxes, like you said, marriage, kids, white picket fence, whatever. And so, but I'm grateful, looking back, because my life took a totally different turn. I became an entrepreneur at age 30. I ran my own marketing business for 8 years.
So you started a marketing agency?
I did, yeah.
What was the name?
Perspective Marketing. So I worked primarily with what we refer to as B2B companies, business to business. Anything that was a relationship-driven sale. I'm a relationship type of person, and so I helped companies like law firms, CPA firms, anything that was a relationship-driven sale, not consumer products, for example. I really helped them with their marketing strategy. So one of our longtime members at Hera Hub, we've now been open 12 years. We just had our 12-year anniversary. A woman by the name of Dominique Molina was a client of mine when I had my marketing agency, and now she has her firm here at Hera Hub. This is now like 15 years later. So
amazing.
The relationships that I built when I built that business, absolutely. And then I started getting involved. When you become an entrepreneur, you have to network.
A lot.
A lot. So I became involved in several different organizations and started volunteering for different groups just to give back and also raise my visibility. One of them was called Women's Global Network. It was a woman that I met through another networking event. This was shortly after I started my marketing business. I met this woman who started this group called Women's Global Network, and the focus of the organization was helping women in developing nations. We partnered with a microcredit organization that was doing microloans in that particular city, country. So we ended up partnering with a group that was doing work in Bukoba, Tanzania, and our members would, simply pay $200 into a microloan program that then funded. It was a donation, so to speak, but it funded the organization that then did these loans for these women in developing nations. That was a really awesome experience. Got me out of the immediate area of what business is and how business works, and helping women who are simply taking, like I did as a kid, peacock feathers and building a business out of it. These women were taking banana leaves and creating a restaurant out of it or something of that nature. Very different businesses than we have here, but it was exciting to learn about that. So helped her build that organization, ran the San Diego chapter, as we called it, when she went off to do other chapters around the world. And it was just that first time. Now I'm in my early 30s and I'm stepping into this leadership position, which was new to me. And it was exciting. But that was kind of my first taste of really building community, curating community, bringing women together, creating a safe space for them to connect and grow and learn from each other. And I did that throughout my 30s with Women's Global Network and another organization called Ladies Who Launch, as in launch businesses. And it was all of that together in addition to I started teaching at the college level. So I had my MBA, I had some experience, I had a failed business with my then now ex-husband. He had a surfboard manufacturing company and a license out of Australia and a surf apparel line that I was supporting him with the work that I was doing when we were married. And so I had a little bit of experience in apparel manufacturing when we lived in Los Angeles. And so I was just at a networking event and met the director of education for a private university called FIDM, the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. And she asked me to teach. And this is right when I had lost my job, fresh with my MBA. And so I taught at the college level just for fun on the side as an adjunct, marketing and entrepreneurship for 8 years. It was a blast. So the teaching I was doing, the entrepreneurship I was doing, the community leadership that I was doing.
How did you organize your schedule during those days? How did you manage all of that?
Well, it's funny, I always say I was the girl with 4 business cards, right? I do this, I do that, I do this, I do that. And when I came up with the idea for Hera Hub in 2010, it was a way to bring it all together. It was a way to build a platform where I could teach and bring women together and connect and run my business and do everything under one roof, and that felt really, really good. But had I not had all those experiences, I would have never put those things together into the business that I built today, which I'm incredibly proud of. We've helped over 13,000 women in the last 12 years either launch their business or scale their business. And we continue to grow. We have 7 locations now, West Coast, we're also in Chicago, Washington, D.C., and we're working on locations right now in Denver and Detroit as well.
That's almost all over the United States.
Yeah.
But that's amazing, Felena.
Such
an inspiration.
It's very rewarding. It's fun. Again, 12 years we've been doing this, and every day I show up at work here and I love it. I mean, I get to interact with the most incredible humans on the planet who are building and growing and inspiring each other. It's just absolutely an amazing place to be.
I wanted to ask you because people have this opinion that entrepreneurs have everything got easily. Like, oh, you don't have to work. You can come into work anytime you want. You can take vacation anytime you want. I want to like demystify the fact that actually entrepreneurs really work a lot and it's not easy. And, you know, they have, I think, a wrong opinion of entrepreneurship. So if you can just like give me your perspective on entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I would say if you hang out on Instagram a lot, you probably are seeing those messages. But the real world, I mean, that's somebody trying to sell you their six-figure program, you know, like get rich quick. Yes. No, that's bullshit. It doesn't happen that way. I'm sorry. I like to say entrepreneurs are the only people that trade a 40-hour-a-week job for an 80-hour-a-week gig. I mean, you work twice as hard, truly, 3 times, 4 times as hard, I think, than you do for somebody else. But hopefully you're passionate about what you're doing because you are spending a lot of time in it and you really, truly have a way to make an impact as an entrepreneur. Not to say you don't in corporate, if you will, but we have surveyed our members several times, and what they say time and time again is they didn't leave their corporate job. Let me start that over again, sorry. We survey our members and we have heard from them, they left their corporate job for several reasons. A lot of times, the number one reason people think women leave their corporate job is what we call work-life balance. Everybody talks about work-life balance, right?
I've heard it here so many times when they came in the US.
Absolutely. And a lot of times we do see that women, perhaps they've had their first child or even more so their second child. I don't have good data on this, but what I've observed over the last 12 years is a lot of times when women have their first child, they'll go back to work for a little while, they have a second child, and that second child comes and they say, you know what, I'm done. I can't go back, I can't balance it, I can't juggle it, I don't have balance. So that's certainly part of it. But the number one reason from the women that we have surveyed that they started their business, number one was not work-life balance, it was I want to have an impact on the world. And I didn't feel like my role and what I was doing in a corporate environment was having the impact I want to make. So women start businesses to help people, primarily.
Yes, it is. Like solve some problem.
Exactly.
Some issue in society.
To help people. Exactly. And so a lot of the businesses that we see here at Hera Hub are a little different than what you might see in a technology accelerator, right? Those businesses are, I'm sure, helping people as well, but women come at launching a business very differently than men do. They want to solve a problem, they want to help people, they perhaps have been through something themselves and come through the other side, and they want to use that experience to help others do the same, right? Helping, supporting. So the types of businesses women launch are oftentimes different, be that good or bad, I'm not putting a label on that. But statistically in the US, 87% of women-owned businesses have 0 full-time employees. So what does that tell you? That tells you that these are small businesses, right? You can't scale a business. It's very difficult to scale a business.
It's so hard to
if
scale
you have no support, right? If it's just you, if you're a one-woman band, right? So a lot of small businesses, and that is the market that we serve here at Hera Hub. So here at Hera Hub, we are a workspace, so physical environment where folks can come in and work, have meetings, host events and workshops, host board meetings. We are a space. It's a beautiful, welcoming, calming space. We call it spa-inspired co-working. So the environment itself is very warm and welcoming. People feel like they're home away from home, so to speak. And that's very, very much by design. We want, when people walk in the door, their blood pressure drops, they're relaxed, they're focused, they're ready to build their business. Not all of our members are entrepreneurs, but most of them are.
And is it a co-working space so you can rent it and work from here, or is it just for entrepreneurs?
It's a membership model, and as a member of the space, you can work here, use meeting rooms, but you get so much more. So that's why we call ourselves a co-working space and business accelerator. So the business acceleration piece of it comes in 2 different formats. So number 1, what we call our just-in-time business acceleration, meaning every single week we have 12 to 15 hours of live virtual programming that members from anywhere can hop on Zoom and learn and grow and connect and get accountability and get what they need in their business to move their business forward. So that's the just-in-time acceleration. I've got a problem today, I need it solved. Then we have two formal business accelerator programs, the Launch Academy and the Growth Academy. So Launch being for those early stage companies, it's a 9-week accelerator program, online content that folks go through on their own throughout the week, and then they show up on Zoom for 2 hours a week in a small group setting, a cohort, where they can ask for support, resources, feedback, advice, really learning from each other in that environment with an expert leading that cohort through this 9-week program. And then we do the same for folks that are growing their business. The Growth Academy is for folks that have been in business a couple years. They've gotten, kind of down the line and they realize, I'm struggling, right? Like, how do I get to the next level? How do I hire well? How do I get investment capital for my business? How do I scale? Yeah. So just-in-time business acceleration, formal program business acceleration, and we are a public benefit corporation. It's kind of a new label here in the US. So for a long time, there was either for-profit or nonprofit, and there was nothing in the middle. And so now there are 2 different designations, and I'm just, framing it from a visual perspective. I'm a very visual person, to give you an idea, not that they're in the middle exactly, but this idea that you can be a profitable business but also do good in the world. Yes. So B Corp is one designation and a public benefit corporation is another. They are very different, but they achieve some similar things. So we are a public benefit corporation, and that drives a mandate to give back to the community, to give back to the public. So we do that through our Guru program. Gurus are subject matter experts that donate their time to the community. So you're here today, you can meet with the CPA, get questions answered on your taxes. You can meet with a marketing expert, you can meet with an attorney, all for free. So those members are stepping up and giving their time to the community. Then those accelerator programs that I talked about, the Launch Academy and the Growth Academy, we go out and get sponsors for those programs so folks can go through at little or no cost. So last year, we had close to $200,000 in sponsored cohorts, so folks went through those programs together, and close to 200 people went through those programs last year. So it allows us to do good in the community, but also run a profitable business at the same time. And I chose not to be a nonprofit organization, because if I'm teaching women how to launch a profitable business,
and you're not,
and I am, exactly, it doesn't connect, right? And from a sustainability perspective, you see a lot of nonprofits, and I've seen it in the co-working space. Co-working spaces are not highly profitable businesses. Look at WeWork, they're still losing billions of dollars. But you can make it profitable, and in that you want sustainability in the business, because if I go away, this platform goes away, right? Yes. And so we chose that public benefit status because we wanted to show folks that we do care and what we're doing, and we want to be able to share that with the community, but at the same time, going into that nonprofit status doesn't allow for sustainability of the business in a lot of cases. And again, I want to show folks, here is how you do it. If I'm saying how to run a profitable business, and in the back end I'm like asking for handouts, it doesn't make sense.
But what would you tell it's a good, I mean, you are now in the leadership role and the managerial role. You have lots of roles, but what would be a definition of a good leader for you?
Yeah, listen and lift. That's how I define a good leader. Listening to your people, your community, and lifting. That's it. Really simple.
And how many employees you have now?
Yeah, so we have expanded through a licensing model. Mm-hmm. So what that allows us to do is, in a particular city, like Washington, D.C., We have an amazing licensee there. Her name is Julia Westfall. She is a community leader. She has a tremendous amount of business experience. She was at a point in her career where she wanted to give back and take all this experience from her career and be able to cultivate community there in Washington, D.C. So for her, she's a business owner, right? And she's connecting with her members who are also business owners. And that relationship, just like myself, I'm a business owner, and my relationship to all my members who are business owners, we have that connection. I get it. I'm in your shoes, right? So in order to grow the business, as opposed to what WeWork did, which is go raise a ton of money.
Yes, and then open a new one and then employ.
Yeah, and so all those are run by employees, and that's fine. That's their model. That's different. But I wanted that connection between the person that's running the space and the community that they are serving. I want everybody to be in the same boat, basically. And so that's allowed us to grow to 7 locations with a really, really lean team. So I have 4 people on my team. I have 4 employees with 7 locations. And I've done that.
4?
Yes, exactly.
Only 4.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But I've done that because I'm able to do that because, number one, we're licensing, but I still have 3 company-owned locations. Our Mission Valley location here in San Diego, La Jolla, and Chicago, which we just opened. Eventually, my hope is to find the right licensee in Chicago to take over that location and make it their own, right? But we also operationally are really, really focused on systems, process, forms, software. I have an amazing woman on my team who's been with me almost since day one. Her name is Janelle Dahl. She's our director of operations. I'm a client of hers now. So she started working for us right out of college for about 4 years and then went off to launch her own business. So I'm a client as opposed to she's not an employee of mine anymore. But she has really been instrumental in building the structure and system of the business so everything can run more efficiently. We are always looking at our process and software programs and saying, how can we do it better? So I would say I get about 100 hours a week of work in about 50 to 60 hours a week because of systems and processes. Critical in my business. And in our Growth Academy, that's really what I teach is how do you build proper processes in your business because you're never going to be able to scale.
Automatization, like how to automate the processes so you're not involved 24 hours with the clients.
Exactly.
And everything. I'm also in this stage now where I'm looking for that.
Yeah, and that's where, you know, it takes an investment of time and resources up front to figure out. So I'll give you an example. When somebody goes to our website and they fill out a form, right, that gets dropped into several different software platforms at the same time. They go on our email marketing list. If they've checked the right box, it goes into our CRM system, different funnels, right? Different processes. So not a funnel from the side of the customer. So we're not selling, online programs and things of that nature where, they get in my funnel and then they get all these different emails. It's more so once they become a customer, right? Because I don't need 1,000 customers, I need 100 customers, right? So we treat every single person that comes in the door at Hera Hub is special, and we get to know them, and we want to make sure we're a good fit for them, and they're a good fit for our community. And so it's a curated membership model. But once that information goes into our system and they become a lead, then we have processes to follow up with them. And then when somebody joins the community, there are certain email triggers that go out to say, welcome to the community, here's what you need. You've been here a month. How's it going? It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's your anniversary.
It's amazing.
So creating that whole system and structure takes a lot of time up front, but to your point, you're never going to be able to execute all those touch points in your business unless you engineer it from the beginning.
That's really amazing. How did you navigate it through the process yourself? I mean, where did you learn to do all of this and gather right people? How did you pick them? Any advices on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions in that question, so I'll pull off a couple things at the same time. So hiring, right, I think is one of the questions you asked in that statement. I will be honest, I am not the best at hiring. I think it's an art and something that you really learn over time. I do my best in that I really try to get to know the person just like we do our members. So we have a personality assessment that we give them, just takes 5-10 minutes, but it really allows us to have a conversation around who they are, what their passion and purpose is. Oftentimes when I interview, my whole goal is to figure out what their passion is, and probably 80% of the time, it's not my business. And so then I can help go connect them with other people that might be a better fit for them, right? Like, I am just trying to figure out who are those people that are really passionate, where their passion and my passion align, and they really get excited about what we're doing. That is critical. So I always say, hire for attitude, not skills. I don't care that you have an MBA.
That was my next question.
In fact, I honestly, especially if you have a fancy MBA, then you're going to feel entitled, and I can't pay the salary as a small business that obviously a lot of big corporations can pay. And so honestly, sometimes, like, if I have a role to fill, sorry, let me say that again. If I have a role to fill, I will sometimes, even as I'm out and about, like, recruit. Like, if I meet somebody at Petco who is just freaking awesome, and like, yes, exactly. Like, I go recruit. I recruit on LinkedIn too.
Yeah,
I never post a job on LinkedIn, but I'll recruit on LinkedIn. So I'll see, like, I got one of my operations coordinators from this very assignment. I went in and, like, keyworded and was looking for people with certain skills in my area, and found a woman who had both an accounting degree but also had just gotten a degree in therapy and relationship therapy. So she had this very analytical side, but also a softer side to her. And she was in academia on the admissions side and was just really frustrated. And so I just found her at the perfect time, and she had this really unique blend of things. And literally, I just recruited her. She came in for an interview, and I hired her because it was a fit, and I could see that fit through LinkedIn.
Amazing. Now the other question, how did you navigate through all of this you're telling me about? How did you find out about the automatization processes? How did you find perfect person to do that for you? How did you navigate it through your own business, like the model of it, how it's going to function, the memberships, the network, like how everything happened?
Community. Network. Yeah, I mean, I surround myself with amazing women who have expertise and are constantly giving to each other. So if I have a question, I need help, I go to our community and I ask for it. And somebody in that community, because we have members from every single industry, background, age, experience, we have truly a diverse community, and I can go crowdsource that information out of our community in 10 minutes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You also have a book.
Yes.
So what is the book about?
Yeah, so the title is called Flight Club.
Why the name?
So there was a movie in the 90s here in the U.S. with an actor, Brad Pitt. I don't know. Yes, I think probably everybody knows Brad Pitt.
In love with
yes,
Brad Pitt
exactly,
forever.
Exactly, yes. And Edward Norton called Fight Club.
That's my favorite.
Right, it's a good movie.
It's amazing.
But the premise of that movie, is fighting, but truly the premise that I focused on was Ed Norton was stuck in what he called a copy of a copy of a copy, the gray cubicle, right? Like, and he was seeking something more in life, so he felt like he was alive, right? And he meets Brad Pitt, and then, the rest of the story. So I felt like that, right? Like I wasn't in big corporate, but when you're working for somebody else, you sometimes feel like a copy of a copy of a copy kind of thing, and you really want to step out and control your own destiny. And so going back to my childhood and Hera and the peacock, right? So taking flight as an entrepreneur, and kind of jumping off the cliff, so to speak, is scary, right? When you step out into the unknown. And lots of folks over the years have kind of referred to Hera Hub as like a club, although I don't like that connotation, so to speak.
Yeah.
It sounds,
It sounds like a golf club,
yes.
like, where people come and hang out.
Exactly.
It's not the idea.
We've been referred to as a club of sorts. And so taking flight as an entrepreneur, and that movie that really impacted me at that time when I watched it, and that idea of just feeling like stuck, led me to the play on the word, or the name of the film, Fight Club, to Flight Club. So the book is part my story, my journey as an entrepreneur, stories of other women. Vivian Sayward is in the book sharing her story. So women who are sharing their, what we call lean out experience, meaning that moment they took a step off the cliff to, launch their business. And then the book is really designed for women who are in that stuck spot and are longing to lean out and start their own business, but they're maybe a bit afraid to do that. So I have other contributing authors in the book who are sharing their experience to help women find their purpose and passion and where that fits into a potential business model. And then the last third of the book is what I now call the Launch Academy. It was called Steps to Startup when I wrote the book. So 17 foundational steps to launch your business. There's highlights of that in the book, but it's an online platform, and that's what's morphed over the last few years into what now, again, I call the Launch Academy. So the book is very much tied into these business accelerator programs that I've developed.
Do you sell it also on Amazon so I can link it in our episode so we can also share that?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Felena, what would this Felena tell to the younger Felena?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I do a lot of mentoring for young women, and it's a passion of mine. I don't have children myself, but I see the challenges that the next generation that's coming up is facing with everything that's happening in the world. Everything feels pretty overwhelming right now.
It's so overwhelming.
Yeah, and I don't want to say kids these days, but the next generation doesn't have the coping mechanisms for it, partially because of COVID, and a lot of them have been really sheltered, and they've grown up in prosperity and therefore been further sheltered and all these different things. So my advice is go for it. I see a lot of young women in particular just being afraid, right? Being afraid of what people think of them, being afraid of being bullied online, which is a very real thing, right?
It was my thought when I was starting a podcast, like somebody can, come in with a negative comment, even if it's a great show, and and I would look at it and then feel stressed out because I'm not a media personality. I just started it because I like it.
You're passionate.
I'm passionate. And then some, I don't know, internet guy who just sits in his home, not doing anything, can write anything about my business and it will have still an impact on me. So that was my thought also when I was starting this.
The problem with social media, truly. And Instagram in particular, like lots of studies have been done around social media use, and teens and girls are 75% more likely to try to attempt suicide of those folks that grew up with a smartphone in their pocket. Exactly, because this outward looking in, this external locus of control, right? I don't control my own destiny, or I don't control what other people think of me, right? This idea that everybody is looking out at me, right? Looking
They're always
at
stigmatizing
me.
you, whatever you do. And even if you're a female entrepreneur, you always have some, they're like, oh, but she's not that successful, she's just pretending, she's a woman, she wants to be, like, it's always something around it. And also, you have a man probably behind you, like, for example, in Europe, especially in my area where I come from, if a woman has a really successful business, they're always thinking that there is some man, helping her with investments.
Which is terrible.
It's
absolutely terrible. So go for it, ignore those people. There are always going to be the naysayers, and that's a whole section of my book is the naysayers, whether that's sometimes even family members that are saying like,
let's talk about that.
What are you doing? I don't understand. Like, I have conversations all the time where folks are like, my mom still doesn't know what I do for a living. And they're like, what? So ignore the naysayers. I like to say 30% of people are crazy. They just are. Just know that. 30%. So 30% of your comments are probably going to be crazy. You just have to ignore it. You have to get thick skin and understand that you don't control what other people think, and therefore you should not worry about it. It's just going to happen. Ignore it. And that is the problem with social media, and girls in particular who are more affected by it than boys who grew up with a phone in their pocket and social media at their fingertips, and that idea of I'm going to post something, I'm going to put on a filter, I'm going to show my best life, because that's what everybody does on social media,
best
right?
life.
Which then further affects us because we think, well, I don't look like that. What's wrong with me, right? And I guarantee you, any 15-year-old girl, 30-year-old woman, maybe 50-year-old woman that posts on Instagram or whatever platform, TikTok, whatever it is, how many minutes does it take for you to go back and look at that post to see how many likes you got?
Oh my God, in a second.
It's terrible.
Yeah, you just like open and close.
It's terrible.
Always.
It's terrible, right? What is that signal that that's sending to our brain? That all we're concerned about, well, dopamine, that's part of the problem for sure, but the signal it's sending is, I care about what other people are saying, doing, thinking about me. And people are too damn busy to worry about what you're doing, frankly. Everybody's totally concerned with themselves. And if they aren't busy enough and they are making those bad comments, then they're in the 30%. I'm sorry.
Would you say that female entrepreneurs have harder time than male entrepreneurs?
Female entrepreneurs have some challenges.
In the U.S., let's talk about U.S.
Yeah, so twofold. Number one, imposter syndrome. You alluded to that a moment ago. That goes back to my comment of just go for it, ignore people, like just do it, right? But as women, a lot of times we question ourselves. We have that, again, imposter syndrome, where we feel like, am I really doing this? Is this really a business? Am I actually, doing what I say I'm doing? Yes. And the problem is, when you're doing that in your spare bedroom, right, it is easy to question yourself. All the more important to get into community, no matter where you are in the world. Find a co-working space, find your tribe, find people that are doing what you're doing, because that will absolutely make or break a business if you have that support and community versus trying to do it alone in your spare bedroom. You have to show up and be around people and be in that culture of people that are doing the same thing that you are. So my big plug for co-working, no matter where you are. So imposter syndrome is absolutely real, and access to capital is a real issue for women too, from the equity side of things, from the loan side of things, through organizations in the US, the Small Business Administration funds opportunities through the SBDC, Small Business Development Center, CDFIs, community development funds. There's different organizations that loan money out to small businesses, and I would say fairly even. I'm sure some would argue, but that access to debt is fairly even now in the US, thanks to a lot of work by a lot of people. But on the equity side of things, there is definitely a huge disparity. So if you are building an equity investable business, meaning a technology platform, biotech, clean tech, anything with the word tech in it, anything that can scale, the access to capital is definitely unequal for women than it is in men, because there are more people on the funding side of the table that are men, right? And so we always talk about pattern recognition, right? If I'm a man on this side of the table and I see a young man that reminds me of myself back in the day, and I have that connection and I can understand them and their business model and who they are, I'm more likely to fund them, right, as an angel investor or a venture capitalist. But if I'm a man on this side of the table, think 50-year-old white man, kind of average VC, and I'm a young woman with a new technology in breast pumping, right, that connection is not there. It's hard to, for that person to understand exactly what I'm doing. So the more women we get on the funding side of the table, those folks writing checks, the more women we're going to get receiving those checks.
Are there any women on the funding side?
There's a ton, yeah, and there's a ton of networks here in the U.S. My angel investor, Dr. Sylvia Ma, who was born and raised in Venezuela and moved here, who is now a very, very well-known angel investor all throughout the United States, is the ultimate connector. She has done so much in the last 10 years to build up women, to support women. Her company is called Stella Co., and she is just incredible at connecting people and getting them funded, whether it's through her personally or through her network. So there's a lot of syndication groups in the US that are really standing up and fighting for the rights of women in this entrepreneurial space and helping them get the funding they need. So it's gotten so much better over the last decade. We still have a long ways to go.
What are your next plans, Felena?
Yeah,
what are the next steps?
Yeah, yeah.
When are you gonna do you feel like you're ever gonna retire as an entrepreneur, or you feel
no,
like
never. Of course not. No, who retires? That's like not a thing. So I truly want to build a global community. I truly want to build a global community. Thus far, we've connected women city to city. The next phase of that is connecting women country to country. So important for women to be able to get perspective and get those connections that's outside of their hometown and even outside of their country.
Sometimes they cannot see because they're
Exactly.
stuck
Exactly.
in their hometown and they don't know there is some possibility to do something. So
Exactly.
it's really important.
And so through our just-in-time education on a daily and weekly basis, through some of our accelerator programs, I'm really looking to connect with women from around the world that want to build a community like this in their city. They want to build this platform for women and then can connect to all the resources that we have and all the system and structure that we've built and can teach them how to build in their city so they don't have to do it alone.
Amazing. Felena, any final remarks, advices, life, entrepreneurial advices?
Yeah, the last thing I'll say again is just find community. Don't do it alone.
Okay, thank you so much, Felena, for being my guest.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
I can't wait to publish this episode.
Yeah, so much fun.
Thank you so much.
Yes, of course, absolutely.